I my name is Aleksandar Dundjerovic. I'm not Maria Sanchez, but I asked Maria to help me to set up the Zoom properly so that I can do a share. So I'm going through her account rather than my account. So I'm going through a borrowed account. But also, I'm talking about war and digital performance. If someone goes after me, I can always say it's not me, it's Maria. So I'm under the false identity here, which it also goes alongside the notion of digital, because who identities do you resume in the digital world? You, someone else, avatar. Anyway, all right, guys, thank you so much for being here, and let me start with the screen share. Do you mind switching your cameras off, please? Everybody off camera, please. And can I just have a verbal confirmation? Do you see my screen share?
Yes.
Thank you so much. And here we are. My topic for today will be war as a digital performance in post-truth era. My name is Aleksandar Dundjerovic. I'm professor of performing arts at Birmingham Conservatoire. I'm one of the co-curator of this conference. I'm also a director of the Center for Interdisciplinary Performative Arts, which is actually the partner center in this conference with the Center for, I think, Multimedia Interdisciplinary Studies at the University of Belgrade. Ivan is co-hosting with me, but I don't think he's going to be there. Predrag, if you can send him a message, it would be nice to join us. Okay. So you probably recognize this. This is the central image, more or less, of the Second World War from 1945. It's taken from an island Iwo Jima with American Marines. It became a symbolic image of a war. In some way, although we talk about digital performance, we are going to centralize with image. Image is a carrier of meaning, as a symbol, as a message. So on the left of the screen, hi, Maria. Thanks for joining. Can you get off the camera, please? Thank you. Thanks for coming. So image on the left is image that is staged for the camera. Some are saying that it's not. The photographer almost missed the point when they were putting the flag. The image on the right is actual placing of the flag. So you can see the movement and the physicality, you can see the dynamics, you can see how powerful is an almost artistic interpretation is the image on the left. This on the right seems to me more real because, people are putting the image, the flag. There's nothing to fight against. What they're going to fight against in the left. In the left, there is the whole physical sort of, they are going against something. What are you going to go against? You're just putting a pole with a flag, which is what's happening on the right. But you do have a guy in front who is keeping a watchful eye because somebody might still shoot you. So the image on the right, as a kind of a theater, film, video director, seems to me very real in terms of a real situation. Images on the left is image prepared to carry on that message, which obviously carried on in a much more powerful way, the image on the right. But, the beauty with this thing is who's to know, because we were not there, we just rely on the testing. So this brings us to the next point, which is truth on the computer screen. And I'll just let you read this. So Gabriela, in her really important book from 2004, Virtual Theaters, actually opens up what will constitute later on the whole notion of liveness and truthfulness within digital performance. An important thing for us in performance is the sense of truthfulness, which is associated with that. You can see that for me, again, as a practitioner and someone who writes about this, and I newly started to write about this, and this is actually from my new book that is going to be published with Routledge about live digital theater. Why this essence of believing in something is important. But I thought that the transitioning to talk about the digital performance, war as a digital performance, is important, because it gives us the notion that the viewer reads screen as something objective. And that's important to start with. Now, we established that there is this kind of believability connected with the screen. Although we know there's editing, we know there's Photoshop, we know that you can do whatever. I was just filming the other day in front of a green screen, and we were creating all sorts of backgrounds. We were working on Hamlet, and we had a whole background of war with burning buildings and everything, and it's on a green screen, and there's a Hamlet there in front. We all know that. But still there is this notion that somehow the screen objectifies. So let's go to good old Zizek. It's good to go to Zizek, because even if you don't know what you're talking about, if you say Zizek, people go Zizek. So Zizek is cool. Zizek comes from Yugoslavia, he's Slovenian, and he found a really clever way how to popularize academia. And I will let you read this. If you can switch off the mic, please. Somebody has a mic. So I will let you read this. So I don't read for you. There is Ivan in the car. Excellent. We established the moment of truth. Ivan is in the car. Maybe that's a video from some other day that he's playing for us, that he's in the car. We don't know that. Ivan, you can get off the camera. Thank you. So this is the concept that is quite important, the rapture that he put forward after the September 11, 2001, which I link to pandemic because it's also a rapture. And then connected to this rapture is this important notion of post-truth. And this quote at the end, that we're in the midst of transitioning from society based on fact to society based of sentiments and emotions. And I think this is something that we should keep in the back of our mind to discuss the post-truth applicability, the era of post-truth, and what digital has to give us. It's this notion of emotional, highly charged emotional content. And it's not really about necessity to understand the facts. It's about the emotional content of that. And actually, we don't need to go to war for that. We all have very fresh notions of coronavirus, what happened to us. And there was a point where really nobody understood corona. And I don't even think I understand really today what this corona does. But everybody had these numbers and numbers of that, with the stories of people in the hospital, parents being left in old age home and you can't access them constantly. But also miraculously, it just disappeared. After I think 24th of February, I'm talking from UK position, Boris Johnson said, now we don't have corona. And really from 24th of February, there's no corona. So that's another very kind of interesting position. By the way, I'm not anti-vax or anything. I had 3 vaccines, but I also had 2 coronas. So God knows. But it's an interesting position. I'm taking the kind of analytical view of the situation. It's not about is it this or is it this. The same thing will apply when I discuss the war. It's not that this is happening or this is happening. I'm looking at the phenomenon on how something is being constructed. And the world constructed with the digital performance, it's a world on its own. That's the world on its own. So anyway, so this is a very important notion I want you to sort of keep up in terms of what we have as a post-truth. Now, enter philosophers. And in philosophy, it's image communication. So I did a little bit from YouTube, and I will just cut to pieces which are interesting. Beautiful thing that also happens, and part of this also I'm deliberately using this, is that this digital media, for example, YouTube, they produced a very simple and very effective way of communicating complex ideas. And we're going to come back to that as a very important thing in terms of how do you present something. So in God we trust, let's see. Sorry about that, it's just necessity, commercial. So this is about Ludwig Wittgenstein. Okay, so that's important. So we're starting with Wittgenstein because of a very simple premise. I can only know what I know. I cannot know what I don't know. So what do I know? This is very, very important in establishing digital performance narrative. It has to be established. I have to know, because if I don't know, I cannot know what I don't know. So he started with this notion of how do we communicate? And let's listen to 40, 50 seconds, and then we're going to go to the second book that's developed further. Please, again, remember this. It's a eureka moment, reconstruction of something that happened in order to see what happened. Now we're going to face this reconstruction of things that happened for media or claims, at least in the last 30, 40 years. It doesn't mean that it didn't happen like that or in a similar way. But that reconstruction particularly didn't happen. And it has been used. in order to create this notion of knowing. Okay, so that's very important because we have a very different understanding. I'm just going to skip very quickly to Iraq War, where America is positioned that they're going to create a paradise after they go in, because they thought that they understand how things work. But what happened on the other side was that they saw that intervention as occupation. So it didn't work for them in the same way as America thought. So the whole thought about hearts and minds didn't really go anywhere. I'm just talking about official narrative. Obviously, there's so many different narratives behind sort of stealing and breaking down, destroying Iraq. This is the second book, important book, second important. Okay, so it's a simplistic video, but what they're saying here in the second version is that the communication depends on the context. The meaning depends on the context, social, cultural context in which it has been established. So, okay, so now I have to, I'm going to do something stupid now. So I have to close this. And I don't want to close the whole thing. So, well, okay, I guess I can do that. Okay, so here I have another short clip. This is the power of image in visual culture. Comes from a very similar source. Okay, I need to go into this, sorry. Okay. No, that's the same. Okay, no, thank you, sorry, guys. Okay, this is the wrong one. Okay, the anti-philosopher is this. Okay, so let me see if I'm okay with this one. So the the one that I was trying to show to you, but I didn't close the YouTube, so therefore I think I'm still circling the same void, is Roland Barthes' mythologies. And in there, he establishes this whole notion of what creates the idea behind an image and the power of image in culture. That in order to control, to set up the understanding, power, there's always a power that controls, uses imagery of popular culture in order to set up the understanding that they want. So entering popular culture through a specific set of images and using the images of popular culture to convey the message becomes essential in creation of a myth. We can see that directly connected to the digital performance. We can apply that to all sense of social networking and how politics, the war is an outcome of different forces clashing, will be using popular culture to communicate complex messages in order to win, gain certain understanding, establish meaning. So we're moving now to this Hollywood Comes to Town, and let's see if I'm lucky so that I can actually show you this, or I have to get out of this this story with images. Okay, or I will just have to talk to you. Okay, where is this? I have a problem. Okay. Oh God, this is because I haven't closed this. How do I close YouTube, people, when I'm sharing? I want to close YouTube. Okay, let me stop sharing.
On another YouTube tab.
Yes.
This is the question.
So, okay, let me just try something. Okay, I really want you to see this one. This is very good. Hollywood Comes to Town. And I need you to, I wanna, okay, let me try to do this somehow. Escape. Okay, let's try sharing again. Okay, share. We are sharing, yeah? Are we sharing?
Yeah, we do.
Okay, so I'm gonna see if I can get out of I'm gonna get it with Christian again. I'm just gonna, yeah, they're gonna give me the, bravo. Watch this.
There is still Hollywood Comes to Town. Yeah, we're not seeing the video.
Maybe just send us a link in the chat and then we can watch it now. Everybody watch it on their own. We don't actually see the video. I just would like you to
Well,
know.
you don't see the video?
No. And if it's too complicated to share, maybe just put a link in the chat, and then we are all going to watch it now, and you can comment on it. Or I don't know, I mean.
Oh my God. Okay. I'm gonna wait. Okay, stop sharing. Yeah, I'm not sharing anything. Disaster.
Now
okay, I'm leaving. Wait. I'll send you links later you can watch. I have to I have to go back into this. One second. So let me just close this. Okay. Did you hear the sound?
No.
Oh, so there was nothing.
No.
Well, yes. Disaster.
I heard.
It's all right, guys. Disaster. Sorry. That's okay. I will send you the. Can you see me now?
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, doesn't matter. So I will send you all these links, and you can follow. There was some mix up when I was moving from in and out of YouTube. It's a bit of a problem because I created a really nice set of images, but I'll send to you. Anyway, the situation here now, I have it here, this thing here, is that so we'll go back to the notion of establishing a narrative. So once you establish a narrative, that narrative is then supported through variety of images which are presented in the scope of different social platforms. The fact that I wanted to show to you is actually a clip that comes from a film, Wag the Dog, from 1997. It's actually the only film it's American film, that shows the staging of a war in order to divert attention from a sex scandal of American president. That was in 1997. Actually, very shortly to that, we have a crisis between Bill Clinton and Monica Lewinsky. And of course, very soon later that, there was a war with Kosovo. So a lot of people are making parallel with that, with bombings that happen, even later on with the different situation that happened with Iraq. So it's an interesting way of sort of entering into that world. The section about the influencer. So there's this thing about an influencer, and as a digital platform, influencer is quite important. And there is a one clip which I also had for you, but I will send you all the clips so you can see. Was that Bill Clinton in around 18th of March 1999 appeared on the TV and then in the CNN. There's a clip of that. And then later on March 24, appeared for a second time, selling the word to American people. This is when the bombing of Yugoslavia started. And what he did is very interesting because he had a very nice speech that there's a whole transcript of that, where he explains why they need to go to this war, why is it important. And then he actually produces a map. But the map is not a big projection map or whatever. It's actually a map from like a school atlas, where he situates where the Kosovo is. And it's very interesting that he starts by saying, this is 170 miles from Italy. Because again, in the notion, if you follow the BATS, you need to construct something that is known to a popular culture. So it's Italy. And then he starts discussing things, all the crimes that happened, destructions. There was a big crime which triggered this, which was, according to these descriptors, a massacre that happened in a village, Racha. 40 people were killed. Now, this is not to measure with 500,000 people killed in Rwanda or by big scandals that happened. This is something that happened in that particular instance, and it was used. But the narrative in 1999 that Clinton uses in a very direct way, very simple way, almost like a YouTube almost like a TikTok way, is that in a very kind of direct, almost like a cinema direct, which is the style of making these kind of documentaries, addresses people and talks to them. Obviously, it's a media, obviously, it's a TV, but the way of talking, the way of addressing, it's a very sort of a simple, evoking truthfulness and going with a strong emotion behind the event that happened, according to the media structure. Obviously, that event triggers then the war, and that was kind of a starting point. And important point in the narrative of that bombing is that this is also to protect Europe and protect the European values. It's a very interesting section, and the wording is about the values, about the protection, but also about the danger that Milosevic represents also to the Europe. Now, few years later, Saddam Hussein will be in a very similar kind of descriptive way as a danger. But by then, there was already a mechanism developed behind the weapon of mass destruction. So in this period, we have a media performance. So all of this is still in the infancy of a social network. It's an infancy of digital performance that enters into sort of a homemade agenda where people are influencers on YouTube, on Facebook, on Instagram, using all these platforms to affect people in different ways. If we go just fast into the notion of what happens with the digital performance going on with the Ukrainian at the moment, you will see there's a range of kind of almost like a TikTok war going on between majority that obviously supports Ukraine and some who are trying to support Russia, or trying to present a different perspective on what's going on. So this is, as Wittgenstein says, it's almost like a game, a context in which different things are defined by understanding the rules which are being set up. So if we go back now to media performance, this is something being dominated by the main media outlets. So where the digital performance started to sort of diverge from this being used for others, but not for us. I'm talking from, let's say, US perspective. Remember that Arab Spring has been completely orchestrated through Facebook activists. And it was enough to point to things that happened on the Facebook. It was enough to put some clips somewhere showing, to say, look, this is what's happening. We know about it. It's truth. Obviously, emotion has to be high, exploring, understanding what, how. Later on, particularly with Syria, a lot of these things were able to be established as fake. So the whole fake news, fake this came. But in the sense of digital performance, that doesn't matter. What matters is that you establish this as a fact by playing on emotional content, and people respond to that. Once people respond to that, that's what they perceive. Whatever you come say later, you say later, and people may know that or may not know that or may remember. So to go back to this notion of establishing something with the digital performance. So within the media performance, that control happened to a certain extent, all the way up, I would say, up to election of Donald Trump. Donald Trump, in terms of the mainstream, I'm talking about West kind of mainstream, was sort of the first one who stepped into Twitter, stepped into this Facebook, into these different platforms, and started using them. Not necessarily going with a mainstream. He wasn't a candidate of Republicans. He wasn't a candidate of anybody. He was a billionaire who wanted to be a president. And he started using social network. He started using digital performance. Very simple message, high emotions, all of these things that we discussed about in terms of how you create this context in post-truth era. And that obviously worked in the first round. So let's go back to the case for, let's say, Iraq war. As I said, I will send you all the links because this is not going to be a chaos, and I don't want to go into the chaos of this presentation because everything was laid out, but I didn't figure out how to exit YouTube in order to get another one. And then that just messed up everything. So anyway, you will have the whole thing available. So we're still talking about multi media as a performance in establishing case for Iraq. I just picked up 3 or 4 images, and it's incredible. By the way, all of this information is very easy to sort of trace. Just Google it to pick it up, everything. So it's incredible to watch the 4 images they put together as a satellite images, and I call it I Spy with my little eye. 4 images. There is a narrative there, obviously, that contextualized. What you see some dots, and then the circles. And I said, this is a lab. These are the inspectors leaving the lab. This is the site for the rockets. This is now cleaned up before inspectors are coming. So you have a narrative that explains that with these images. You can say whatever, you can say literally whatever because they just show some structure in the sand, or not even a structure in sand, some dots. So that in itself was presented. So we're talking about digital performance, but this was a digital performance, except that first it was done live. So with those evidence, right, they went to United Nations, and Colin Powell, actually there's also a clip of that, brings out a little anthrax as a chemical, the objective. So if you think of it as a performance, and Colin Powell as a performer, you have an object that goes there to show, look, there's an audience. And then you bring a video sort of presentation that talks about different things. And a story, look, this is what happened. Of course, nothing happened, nothing was found, nothing existed. It is being referred as the kind of biggest lie of the 20th century, 21st century. But it's okay, it happened. So the important point is how these things are constructed. So then similar thinking now, if we fast forward, goes into the social network, into the TikTok wars. If you spend time on TikTok just researching and looking different sites, you also have a new apart from Ukrainian, Russian, you have a new trend there, which is a sort of a satire, making fun of different things. They're beautiful little videos. I will make sure I'll send them to you. They actually make they took satirical view on this position, not on the obviously deaths and crimes and destruction. It's not about that. Satirical view on the position that West has towards this situation, because effectively, in the satirical context, nobody is really doing anything, and so they are picking on that and they are subverting that. There's an amazing sketch about someone phoning Kensington's council in London, most rich one, complaining when I'm going to get my Ukrainian, because the neighbor got Tesla and Coco Poodle before us, and I want to make sure that I get a Ukrainian before. It has to be blonde, speaks good English, and most important, has to have its own accommodation. But looking for a Ukrainian cleaner. So this is something turning on the story of like, we're going to accept everybody, and then we're going to get people here, we're going to give money. But story soon after they die. And then from different sources, you hear that they actually, the only people who've been accepted are those who have relatives here. And even that is a problem. So people are picking up on that and turning that into, again, on TikTok, into some sort of a war and participating in different perception. I will move now quickly into this notion of what is allowed and what is not. It's very interesting that soon with the war, most of the outlets, media outlets, that would say something different from the narrative established in the West were shut down, were closed. Then there's the same thinking when Russia shut down previously to this, Western outlets who were presenting things in a different way. And it's interesting that in one way, when you look, this is propaganda. What you're doing is propaganda. It's horrible. But what we do is not. We speak truth. And it's interesting that both sides have a very same position. So if you go back to this notion of communication, there's no understanding there. There's no connection whatsoever because we both present the same argument. We say, and there was someone, it was very interesting on BBC. I think someone within the government, British government, who was saying that actually you can never compare what BBC does to any other side because what we do is truthfulness. We are the truth, but no one else. And it's also interesting that majority of people that I know are very reserved to BBC because it is a very mainstream government media that pushes very particular narrative. And moving away out of that, just want to say something else finally in terms of what happens in this post-truth era with the digital performance. So this is all about content, communication, connection. But there is something very important here, and this is the audience. The users, receivers. And this is something that I observe, this is now developing as my own kind of research into this, is how the media respond, digital media respond, to users, to the audience. What matters is how many people follow. What matters how many people see. It doesn't matter what you say. The content doesn't matter. It's the, I would say, presence of the audience, presence of the people that you're addressing, the impact that you have. So in that sense, the question of free speech becomes a little bit muted. Because yes, I'm free to speak as long as there's no one to listen to. I'm free to speak whatever I want to say as long as there's like 5 people following me. The moment I go into 5 million, obviously there are mechanisms that will be launched to try to stop or to take me out. Hence Assange, who reached millions, and he just really wanted to expose things which were very factual. And he's where he is. So the notion of the audience is really important. It's who are the receptors of this and how we reach them. And therefore this whole TikTok wars, as I label them, are about different influences trying to reach and tell the story and get that sort of a communicational acceptance, but in a very, as Bart said, in a very popular culture way, so that the complex things can be explained in a very simple way. And so the final, to sort of conclude with this, it is a notion of pageantry. The digital performance follows structure of a medieval morality play. And even small clips of digital performance in the time of war follow that notion because things are polarized, things are confronted, but we need to appear to be neutral. We have to appear that we have kind of a higher ground in ethics or morality, that we can explain things. So morality plays sets up good versus bad. And there is always some virtue being attacked by something bad, when then fate helps you overcome that. And you can kind of see that structure being played out Saddam was a bad guy. That's it. But also he has weapons that destroy us. Putin has been established as a bad guy. Long. There's no one now who even dare to say he's a bad guy. He's been established as a bad guy. That's it. He's a bad guy. Now, we don't really have weapons of mass destruction, but we do have intention that he now wants to take over the Europe. So it's not a weapon of mass destruction, but there is an intention. Although nobody's really doing much about it. They're just talking about it. So there is this good versus bad. And obviously, Zelensky, Ukraine, is a good. He has been structured as a very good man. He's an actor who works very well on a script. He could be as well reading from a bag somebody that is creating Hollywood for him, which is what the film does, the clip that you couldn't see. So you already, by the fact that you have an actor, you already have a situation of simulacra. It doesn't mean that this is not happening. It doesn't mean that everything is there. And it means that he's really in a good position to pass on the suffering, maybe much better than any politician. But the fact is that he's there as an influencer. The fact is that he's there to talk to us through the channels, through online. He went to all sorts of political forums with an online presence. So digital performance in times of war actually position reality as a kind of meta-reality, as a reality that has its own communicational context. It is a post-truth. I think there's the next level now that we're entering, and it's a post-reality. It's a reality that it constructs itself. And you either are part of that reality, you're conditioned to accept it, or you're not. If you're not, there are certain consequences to that. However, the audience runs this forum. And when I was talking to my kids, one is 18, at the start, let's say, of the war in Ukraine, they were just talking about it. Usually they don't follow much. They follow, but they're not really interested. They just talked about it. A month later, they don't even connect to that anymore. They follow TikTok. So what trends on TikTok is what audience is interested in. And it's driven by the interest. Is it good? Is it bad? Is it catastrophic? What is it going to do to us? I don't know. But these are some sort of like a closing observation that this thing has its own reality, post-reality, but it also has an expiration date because it's somehow brought into this, as they call it, metaverse, into this world where the video game and the reality and the entertainment is all part of the same context. Thank you.